So why am I really starting from zero again? Because it's not really about the money. So I've got a bunch of notes here. So Sandy, my wife, and I have got rental property and investments and that kind of thing. We live on about $35,000 a year, and we have about $60,000 in kind of passive income, for lack of a better term, but basically coming off our investment returns and from the rental property that's managed, and we don't have to do that much about it. So we've achieved that whole rich dad poor dad goal I set myself in my 20s when I read that book. If anyone's read that, I know there's mixed feelings about it now, but I think it has a good framework in terms of like building enough assets that you get this income coming off it so you don't have to work anymore. That was always my goal, and we've basically achieved that. And even like I figured out if we never even got any more investment returns, we lived in like our apartment that's paid for mortgage free, but like we kind of sold the rental property and we cashed in all the investments, then we'd live on the cash for like would make it another 51 years without working. So I'm 43 now. That would get me to 94, which is probably a good innings. Hopefully live longer than that, but in good health. But we're kind of set up on that side. And so like the common answer is like, well, what about more money? Like everyone wants more money, doesn't it? Don't they? Like, so not driving around in a Ferrari, like we don't even have a car. I don't like driving myself. I have no interest in sports cars, but people want the Ferraris and the big flash mansion or fly first class, or all those kind of things. And so like they're interesting, and we'll talk about them maybe a little bit later in terms of like the status and things that come in internal versus external. But if you think about like why to start a business, money is probably not the best way to do it. So I got some other stats. So say you get your business to $1 million in revenue, right? And everyone's like, oh yeah, $1 million business. And YouTube will tell you, well, that's super easy, and all these 20-year-olds are making millions of dollars, which isn't the reality when you actually get into the numbers. So only 4% of businesses actually make it to the $1 million level. And then you don't put $1 million in your pocket. You've got to understand revenue versus net profit. And so an average $1 million business, say it was like a healthy business, is probably 10% in net profit. So 5% would be your bad end. Going up, you kind of fluctuate to 15 to 5, and that 10's the middle ground. Some people will be higher depending on the business and that kind of thing. And obviously if you're doing all the work yourself, like a service business, there's a lot of one-person businesses popping up these days, which I don't call businesses, they're self-employment. You can make a lot more money just doing that because you're doing all the services yourself and putting the money in your pocket. So aside from all that, like an average business that actually has employees and is normal, I guess, has about 10% in net profit. So you make $1 million, you keep 10% of that. Then you add on that, say your salary. So you're working in the business at the moment, so you want to get paid, let's say $100,000 to keep it nice round numbers, for your salary for the services that you provide to the business as an employee. And then your $100,000. So you got $200,000 coming out the back of it. And then if you take taxes into account, you're probably getting about without getting fancy with all the strategies and that kind of thing, 140K say comes into your pocket. So when Sandy and I were working at our highest income potential, so I was working with two main clients, so you could kind of consider that one I had to become an employee with for multiple days. I wasn't at that stage, but I was a contractor, but two of them, so I wasn't going out looking for new clients or anything like that. It was purely time, money, exchanging my time for money and making a lot of money in the process. So we were managing to save invest $13,000 a month at that point. So that's $156,000 a year that we're putting into our investments that are gonna grow for us. And so that's a huge amount. It's a little bit more than having your own business, and we could do that through a job. And obviously there's two people there doing that, and we're also paying those $35,000 of living costs on top of that. And like sometimes we spend more for holidays and that, like we have a kind of 1 month holiday baked into that. But if we went on extra holidays or trips or things like that, or went like Europe last year, which is further away for us, that costs more money versus going somewhere like to Thailand or something like that. That's cheaper, but just as much fun because we get to do all this diving and look after rescue elephants and things like that. Anyway, so it's not like that much different. And so if we just worked in jobs and took that 150k a year that we were banking away, because like what really makes your investments grow is your savings rate. It's not actually your income. So Psychology of Money is an interesting book. Morgan Housel, I think that's how you say it, wrote that and talks about kind of the realities of money. It's a very interesting read in terms of it's not about how much you earn, it's how much you save, so what you're putting away. So we were able to save a lot because we live very cheaply. We've paid off mortgages fast and like don't buy a bunch of new stuff. We invest money on things we like doing, like travel is like one of our big spending things, but we're not, I'm not a fancy clothes person, we're not fancy cars, and our apartment is nice, but it's not like overlooking the waterfront with amazing views or anything like that. Maybe one day we'll decide to invest in something like that, but it's good enough, right? So by doing that, you can invest. So if we were putting away 156k a year, at 6% return, that would add almost another 10k of like passive income to us each year. So another 4 years would go from 60k to 100k. And we could just do that, and it would be way simpler than trying to build a business, because obviously building a business to $1 million, yeah, it's going to take 5 to 10 years to do it, like especially when you're bootstrapping. If you're not, there's a lot of businesses with high valuations that like tech businesses and that kind of thing that sound amazing, but they're based on investor funding. So if you can sell investors, I'm giving you a whole bunch of money and get a big valuation for your company, but a lot of them fall over as well. So venture capitalists kind of knock it out of the park. 1 in 10 businesses they invest in, 3 or 4 do okay and kind of break even and the rest of them fail miserably or burst into flames. So business is a lot of risk for the return of that. So if you're just doing it for the money, like, is it really worth it? So it can be better to like work in a job and make it wealthier. So there was a study, the Ramsey study basically, that looked at millionaires. I haven't read it in depth, so I just did some quick AI searches. Google Gemini is feeding me this information, so take it with a grain of salt, but sounds reasonable. That 75% of Americans that are millionaires actually are employees. So they're not self-employed, they don't have businesses. And so if you look at that, like, and obviously there's that $1 million level, which used to be like the pinnacle of what everyone was aiming for, and now you need multiple millions, like what I would consider wealthy there now compared to where we are now. It's always ahead of where you are, right? So you want to get to that 5, 10, like above. I think that's a very comfortable level until you get there probably, and then you're like, oh yeah, I need a 50 million net worth to keep going. But aside from that, like, you could get that leverage from a job, and the great thing about a job is it leverages your skills. So if you're an engineer or you're an accountant or you're a programmer, you have just learn management skills and that kind of thing in your department. So if you're a marketer but then you learn to be a manager, you're upping your skill and your value to that company, and that company leverages your skills over a whole bunch more, like a bigger revenue base basically. So if you join a $100 million company, your contribution combines with hundreds of other people to make a lot more money for that company versus doing it yourself. So in your business, you've got to, instead of being a specialist in one area, be a generalist in multiple. So you've got to be good at sales, you've got to be good at marketing, you've got to be good at operations, so delivering your service or your product, whatever that is. You've got to be good at finance, you've got to be good at managing all those levels as well. And so there's a lot more skill sets that you need to learn. And so is it better to have a business or not? I know, like, the YouTube generation, growing up on social media, that seems the only way to go. And if you're watching this kind of stuff, then that's what you've been sold. Hey, that's what I grew up on as well. But it's worth reflecting of what you're really good at and where you're going to get the outcome that you want the fastest. And I'm a business person, and I'm starting from zero again, and there's a reason why I'm doing that, so I'm not knocking it because I'm going to do it, but it's interesting to think about for yourself. And so being an employee lets you like focus more specifically and get more leverage for your skills and probably make a lot more money doing it. Like a lot of businesses only make a couple of $100,000 a year, and you make more money and work less having a job. So you think about like all the different factors, right? So being your own boss is one of the big keynote thing. I want to be my own boss. The reality of owning a business is you're never actually your own boss. It gets way worse. In a company, you have one boss, usually, and maybe their boss and that kind of thing. But when you start a business, like a service business, like what I do, like I work with multiple different clients. And so you have multiple different bosses telling you what they want to do and having those discussions and trying to get your point of view across to multiple different people in different areas. And so if you're dealing with products and selling them like through Shopify and stuff, you've got thousands of customers, hopefully, that are all kind of your boss, because you want each of them to keep buying from you. Otherwise your business isn't going to be sustainable. And so you trade what is perceived as one boss for many bosses and a lot more responsibility in the process. I would also say that your like employees are like your bosses as well, because now they depend on you. So you've got to pay their paychecks. We're back to zero revenue and Mohammed still has to get paid. And so that goes on me unless I'm going to restructure and change the whole business, which I'm not going to do in case Mohammed's watching this and panicking. Like you have more responsibility on your shoulders to get everyone enough work and enough revenue to pay for everything, and so they can have stable lives and salaries. So you're taking on all the risk, and that's what you get rewarded for if things go really well. But it's also the really scary hard part that not a lot of people probably want to deal with when you focus on what your real outcome is and what you'd really want to achieve. You've got to have a special way of thinking that makes you want to be an entrepreneur or business owner or that kind of thing. I think a lot of people fall into it and we get trapped in it. I've seen it time and time again where there's business owners who it's they just like doing what they're doing and they thought it would be better, and now they're trapped in a business, whereas they probably would have been more successful if they'd stayed in a job somewhere doing what they actually love doing. So it's worth thinking about and considering, while everyone else is like, yeah, go have a business, and if you don't go and start your own business and you work for other people, you're this massive loser or some bullshit. And it's not true. Most people work for other people, and that makes the world go around. So don't buy into the people trying to sell you the get rich quick opportunities of, start this business because don't be a slave to other people and work, and that's a very loaded term. But it's, you just got to think about what's behind what that person's trying to sell you, basically. So that's your kind of time, being your own boss. The truth about time freedom. So everyone thinks you have massive amounts of time. Maybe you work in an organization where it's the boss swans in and swans out as they feel like it. But you've got to realize that they've done that for work many years to get to that point where that happens. And the business probably isn't growing if that's the attitude that they're taking to it now. It's just, they're yeah, this is good enough. And they might as well just have a job because of the level of effort that they're putting into it. They're not trying to grow the business or turn it into something bigger. So you think you have all this time and free time and all these other people, the employees, are going to do all the work for you and it's going to be amazing. But the buck just stops with you all the time. So you've got to really want it, because you don't stop at 5 p.m. I'm recording this on a Saturday because I felt like doing some content. I'll probably go back to Monday to Friday. But as I get this series started, I was it's Saturday morning, I'm up, I'll do some business. work. Like think about all this stuff and record some content for the business. Like that's just the way it is. I remember like I've been on, like whenever I travel, so it sounds great. Me and Sandy take a month off every year and we travel the world. But I've got my laptop with me and I'm checking my emails and I'm responding to things. And I might do an hour or two of work each night or every couple of nights while I'm over there to keep things ticking over. Otherwise, bad stuff happens. I remember we did kung fu trips over in like Malaysia and different places. But I remember we'd start training, it was either get up at 6 a.m. or start training at 6 a.m., something like that. Do 3 training sessions all during the day. And about after dinner at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, we'd all be going back to our rooms to relax. And I'd be pulling out my laptop and doing work for clients that I had to write sales letters for and create emails and stuff. Work till 1 a.m, 2 a.m, some things, and then get up at 6 a.m. and go do the fun trip part of the kung fu thing, the whole thing that I was there, because I couldn't turn off. When I was working as with my major client and we became an employee in that, I had annual leave and I went away for 4 weeks and I didn't check the emails, and I'm like, everything can wait till I get back. It's not my problem because it's not my business. Whereas it's a different thing when it's your own business. You don't get to say that. And so yeah, there's a lot to be said for making the most of your holidays, because being a business owner is not as nice as it seems to be. And then so I think about as well, like a lot of people you watch on YouTube and stuff, and it's like, oh, go start this business at 20 and just you'll make millions of dollars and it'll be great. A lot of the people that have made it at 20, they started at like 14 or 15 trying to figure out how to make money online. And you don't see all the years of work that's gone into it to get those results. And so what we have a lot of like interns and people who've come through have just learnt marketing at university and then or college, and then they're coming into the workforce as part of their degree. They do a learning experience for 9 weeks. And I talk to them, it's like, if you want to start a business, go find a business that you want to start and work in it. So if you want to have an e-commerce website or Shopify store, go find a Shopify store that you can go work in and learn what it's really like. You might start in the marketing department if you're a marketer, but while you're in that business, you want to learn, like sales and marketing for e-commerce are kind of the same thing, but operations, how do they get the product sourced? How do they get it made? How long is the development process? Like what feedback and different ingredients or components or different things? How do you save money? Shipping, logistics, all those different aspects that come, and the finance. How involved can you get? Like obviously depends on the business owner, but if they share profit and loss information, learn about profit and loss, balance sheets, cash flow, all these different aspects of the business, and just be really nosy but inquisitive of getting someone to teach you all the ropes that you can learn before you go out on your own. And then you get you get paid to learn. So it's way better than like your college degree where you have to pay a whole bunch of money and then you learn stuff and then you go out into the real world and they're like, yeah, that's great. That's not how we do it here. It's generally my experience. You get paid to learn on their dime and go and do it. And it's the same, like you see it in professions as well. Like dentistry is kind of the classic one. I know in New Zealand this happens all the time, where the dentist hires a dentist who's just graduated, and that dentist works with them for a while, and then they learn the ropes and how to do all the stuff, and then they go open their own dentistry practice to be a business owner. And the head dentist is like, oh, now I have to start again. So something about how to retain your dentist and learning how to do that, you can have a very profitable dental company. But that's what people do. We have apprenticeships in like building or for electricians or plumbers or those kind of things where you learn on the job. It's the same if you want to be a business owner. Look for those opportunities where you can learn on the job and make the most of it, because they can really pay off. And so with all that kind of said, and the negatives of starting a business and where we are financially, and why the hell would I start this all over again from zero revenue and do it? And so I think like could not work again, and I'd be bored out of my mind is my answer to that. But say that I needed money and that kind of thing. But I've reached this point where I think of myself as unemployable, just because I see the world differently. And I think that's part of like the people that you work with. Like, you're always looking for a leader who's ahead of you in the game, who can show you what you don't know. And I've struggled to find that because of like reading all the books and doing courses and constantly learning. And this is what I do for fun in my evenings and weekends, and that like I'm learning about business and reading books and learning from all these great thinkers that have gone before and trying to apply those to businesses. I often find it hard to get that point of view because like I've got 25 years of stuff rolling around in my head, where I was saying to someone else the other day, it's real obvious in my head what to do next based on what I've seen, but it's hard to communicate that because there's 25 years of building blocks you have to get through to be like, this is the answer, but here's 25 years of reasons why that's the answer. And so that makes it tricky, and I haven't found a leader that I'm like, oh my god, I want to learn from this person, they're amazing. There's obviously people who are well ahead of me, especially I'm at zero now, so technically anyone financially making $1 in their business is ahead of me, but ahead of terms of learning. So there's like obviously people that I follow and listen to and read books of and all that kind of thing, and billionaires and stuff that are well ahead of me, and there's so much to learn there. I've never really looked for an opportunity to work for any of them. I don't know why. Maybe that would be a smarter thing, because it would kind of drag me up. So they exist, but kind of I've also got to that point where, like as Frankie said, I need to do it my way and build a business that of the vision that I have for it, because I've been in so many and there's always things that you want to change and improve, and that kind of constant improving thing. And I think there's also a bit about, well, I know there's a bit about the status. And so we talk about marketing and that kind of thing, a lot of people have these surface desires of like, I want to buy this product because I need to solve this problem type thing. But when you go down the layers of what people really want things for, it often comes down to status in my mind, and how we feel about ourselves and also how others perceive us. So you could break it down to, there's kind of external status, and then you've got internal status and the way that you feel. So for example, like if you've got a get rich quick scheme, which is not what you think you're buying, but you've got a course, and like the latest hottest one is like AI agencies and that kind of thing, and the AI will do all the work for you and you'll create this amazing agency and make tons of money, and it's this great opportunity and you got to jump on it now because otherwise you're going to miss out, and blah 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 blah. And so people don't buy that because they want to make money. Like that's the surface level of like, I need money and I'll buy this thing and do it. But really there's something deeper with us, and it's going to be maybe different for other people. There's probably some common threads when you really get down to it, but it's that status that you feel. So you grew up with not a lot of money in your family or something like that, and so you want to make money because you're like, I don't want to go through Christmas with not having Christmas presents for my kids, or feeling hungry at times. Like people grow up like that, and that's been a massive driver of successful entrepreneurs who come from nothing and build themselves up. There's the external status of, I just want to look cool, so that's where the Lamborghinis and the mansions and the stuff like that is. And it's like, well, that's like an external status that you're trying to build, and an image of yourself so people view you as successful. And that could even be like deeper linked to like how attractive the opposite, well, the gender that you're attracted to feels about you as well. And so like a lot of people want the Ferrari because then they believe they're gonna attract an ideal partner for themselves. And so if you go deeper and deeper, like why do people go to the gym to go and lift weights and build muscles? It's probably to become more attractive, which is probably to find a partner, which is when you go down the layers and people were like, oh no, I love lifting weights and stuff like that. But we've got some primal desires that really drive us, like human beings. Reproduction is a big one, so a lot of things link back to that, but that kind of status. And so for me, there's that external thing of like, you can look rich, so I define it, the difference between rich and wealthy, right? So rich is like often high income, so it's an appearance of having a lot of money, fancy cars, all that kind of stuff. And then there's wealth, which is hidden below the surface, which is owning a bunch of assets that pay you a bunch of money. So you can be a rich, like a sports star who's earning millions of dollars a year in a contract in NFL or something like that, but then they retire from the game and they've spent all their money and their family screwed them over and taken it all as well, and they've got no assets underneath. And so they're not really wealthy, they're just rich to an appearance. And so a lot of people that drive the fancy cars or have the big houses, like, you don't see what the mortgage balance or the loan payments are on those things that they're bought as well. So you don't really know how like rich someone really is, unless they pull out their balance sheets, their profit and loss, or like an income statement, and be like, yeah, this is what I make. So there's a lot of bullshit that goes around that as well. And so for me, it's not, I don't feel it's an external status. I think like we are driven by what people think of us. And so there'll be aspects of that on there. There's probably a percentage, maybe I'm 30% driven by I want other people to think I'm cool or something like that. But I think, let's say 70% is like this internal driver of what I view success as in my life. And so when in my 20s, like I stumbled upon the Rich Dad Poor Dad. It was the Guide to Investing book. That's the first one I read on a bedside table when I was house sitting. And so that started me down this journey of like, oh, business and that kind of thing. And I'd like the idea. In economics, I'd seen the word entrepreneurship as one of the 4 forms of capital, and got really like, oh, I want to do that. Like, that sounds really cool. Not really knowing what it meant, or I was like 15 at the time. But these kind of steps stepped me down this journey. And so I had that goal of like, oh, I want to be a millionaire. So that is $1 million business is kind of my first thought of what you think about. I need to make $1 million in revenue because that'll make me a millionaire. And then you figure out that's not how it actually works, but that's fine. And so I've helped other people build businesses. Like one went from 0 and then we were at $93,000 a month in 6 months. So that crossed $1 million in the first year, and had a $1 million annual run rate as well. And then you've got other ones, they were about 200,000 when I started. We got it up to about 2.4 million. And so I built businesses for other people. I've gone into businesses that were already doing well in the millions of dollars and added more than $1 million in revenue by helping growing those businesses. So I've got that track record and I've done that. I've become a multi-millionaire in terms of what we have in terms of assets in the bank. But there's still that internal nagging thing of like, I haven't got my own business to that $1 million in annual revenue. And that's kind of the marker. I think the marker is now like, it should be 10 and then 100. Like, let's start with that $1 million one, because you work in steps, right? And so for me, like, I don't feel successful internally until I manage to hit that measurement, basically. And so I want to make sure that I hit that just from a personal thing. Like, it's driven. It's not like anyone gives a shit. Like, no one's going to notice. No one's going to care. No one's going to be like, show me your P&L. Oh, you make $1 million in revenue. Like, you're doing super awesome. Right? So it's really dumb, but it's something that drives me for some reason, right? And I guess, like, if you think about the emotions and stuff behind it, you're thinking about, like, we're all driven. A lot of people talk about this, like, towards motivation, where it's like, I want this thing and I'm going towards it, and away from motivation, where you're trying to move away from things and move away from pain. And the more years I have in life, I think the towards is nice, but it's like, well, I'm comfortable, so it's like, oh, it'd be nice to do that, but it's a nice to have. Is that really the motivation? Versus the away from of like, do I feel enough if I haven't achieved this? And how hard am I on myself because like I haven't hit this $1 million revenue target yet? And I think that's really what kind of drives, like I just label myself as a failure for not having done that, which is kind of ridiculous when you look at what I've done in my life and everything I got going for me. Like there's no way like the external validation from people would be like, oh, you're such a failure, oh my god, like life's good, there's no problem there. So it's, I think, a very personal thing, and if you don't really have that personal thing and that drive, like how do you keep going when it gets tough? And so there's that side of things, there's the doing it my way. I like the idea of the blank canvas as well. So other businesses that I've worked with, it's like, oh yeah, I would do this differently, I'd do this, or why don't you do that, or this is a big opportunity. And so by having your own business, it does give you that blank canvas where you can screw it up as much as you like. Like you can make bad decisions and try stuff and see what happens, where when you're working with other people, like you've got to be collaborative, or you've got to listen to your boss and do what they want. And so that's an aspect as well of having, like, I'd imagine like if you're an architect or something and it's like, hey, we've got this square bit of land in the middle of the city and we want you to build a cool building there. You've got that, oh, that's going to be amazing because I'm going to build this amazing building, and how am I going to do all these things and stuff like that. Or an artist who gets the blank canvas, right, and then creates their painting on it. And for me, that art to create as a business, in terms of, oh, what would it look like? Like, I literally have the file in my phone of business ideas of all this random stuff that I'm never going to do, but I just like writing down business ideas. You need to focus and get one going, but like there's some pretty cool ideas in there that I'd love to get the opportunity to do one day. So having that blank canvas is a big thing as well. And then the other thing I think about is like what drives athletes. So I do Kung Fu, and I've been doing that for just over 20 years now, teaching for 10 of those years. And I don't go to Kung Fu or like to get better at this stage. Like I can be way better, so I'm not amazing. I consider myself crap. Maybe that's the I'm never enough syndrome again. Like I look at other people and go, wow, that's so cool, and I'm useless. And I guess that keeps me driving for the next level of trying to get better. But really what the value in getting better, like who sees it? Very few people at a limited time, like some of my students or something, and what does it really matter in terms of whether you're better at something or not? And if you think about like athletes, like going to the Olympics or that kind of thing, it's like, it's great, they stand on a podium and they win a gold medal at some point, but most of them, like there's 10 other people in the race, or like 20 in the finals or whatever. So like think about an Olympic sprinter who spends like years of their life training for a moment that is going to be decided in a couple of split seconds of whether they get a gold medal or a silver medal. Well, they might be ninth and like no one knows who the hell they are, but they did run in the Olympics and that's their like claim to fame. What do they really do it for? And so it's like you think about how much time they spend on the track, and like how many times have they run 100 meters as fast as they can, trying to shave off split seconds just by doing a little bit better, and like the strength exercises or this or that, or how many times they practice starting off the blocks to try and get that little bit faster, and those tiny little details. And then you look back at your life, and like an athlete's life is a lot shorter than a business owner's, where you perform at a certain like you might be out of the sport by 25 or 30 or 35 or 40 or whatever it is, and it's all over, and you put in all this time and effort. So why put in the time and effort? And I think, like, underlying it all, you've got to, like, you're just trying to get better as that driver. And so when it comes down to it, like, for me, it's trying to be a better person every day. And you can do that in multiple different ways. Like, it doesn't have to be a business thing. And like Kung Fu training, you're trying to get better and better at the techniques you're doing, but also be a better person in terms of how you act and respect and behavior and empathy and all these other different kind of skills that come into it. And same like in your health, trying to eat better or try to exercise better or more effectively, or in your relationship, try to show up and be a better person. And so I think what kind of, I guess, drives me, and I wonder about other entrepreneurs and whether it drives them, do we just want to be better on a constant basis, where it's like that is the goal. The goal is just to be a little bit better today than I was yesterday, to be a little bit better in a week, in a month, in 12 months, to look back and be like, yes, through that time I got better. I might not have hit a financial target, I might not have got revenue or profit goals or things like that, but I did get better in the process. And is that what really drives us? Where, again, it might be driven by the, I think I suck and I need to be better. And maybe we just never really overcome that. Or do you stop growing at the point where you feel that you've overcome that? They have a thing in boxing where I talk about it in the Rocky movies as well, but like when I think it's Apollo Creed saying the worst thing that can happen to a boxer is they get civilized. And so in the beginning, Rocky's like this underdog, he's got no money, he's got his only way out is fighting, and the only way to get there is like becoming a boxer. But then as he starts to win, he comes back, he gets to that point where he's already successful, and does he want to get punched in the head for a job over and over again? And you see that in like Rocky 3 when he goes up against Clubber Lang, Mr. T, and he's the Mr. T is now the underdog who has no money and wants to build himself up, and Rocky is that kind of like, why am I going through this again? And I think if you look at the lives of successful people, I would guess that it's just you never feel enough and you always want more. People think it's probably more in terms of riches or reward or fame or something like that, but I think it's deeper in terms of what it actually means to us inside, like internally, is probably the biggest driver. And so like the question when I started this, my long video ramble, was like, why would I start from zero revenue again and put myself through this when I don't really need to? And it's just to be better, because I will be a better person through going through this process, and I will push myself to limits that I've never hit $1 million in revenue by myself. So that's a whole different, it'll be a skill set. If I knew how to do it, I'd just go out and do it. And so I need different skills and behaviors and attitudes and like my character to get to that level, and then to get past it, to constantly improve. And so that's, I think, the journey. It happens in all areas of my life. I like to push myself for health goals and relationship and like the business and the wealth side of things, financial side as well. So I think that's what drives me. It might drive you if you've watched all this way. It's a curious thing. If you're an entrepreneur, I'd love to hear what your reflections are about why you go through the pain on a constant daily basis. We don't get weekends off of pain. There's still stress. So like, what's going on? So is it really for that end goal, and then you've made it, and then you just, that's a comfortable level, and that's where the business stops growing because you're now comfortable and you don't have that fighter mentality to get to that next level? Is that why businesses stop growing? Because the business can't grow past the business owner, and the business owner has had enough of the pain and doesn't want to grow anymore. It's a very curious topic, And obviously I don't have all the answers, but it's interesting to reflect on and talk to people about. So anyway, hope you enjoyed that. And stay tuned for the next ramble of thoughts that come into my head. Catch you later. Bye.